This is the independent practice for lesson 1.3. We're on page 24, and again, we're going to expect that you have tried your best to answer these questions and that you only play this video when you either need a hint or when you're ready to check your answers. Number 9, communicate mathematical ideas. Lisa and Alice are playing a game. Each player either receives or has to pay money based on the result of their spin. The table lists how much a player receives or pays for various spins. And you need to analyze this table right here before you can write your answers. Question A says, express the amounts in the table as positive and negative numbers. There's two clues here that tell you that we want multiple answers. Express the amounts plural as positive and negative numbers plural. So really all you need to do is go here and decide whether these numbers are positive or negative. Paying $5 to me is a negative, so I'm going to write negative 5. And then receiving $4 is a positive. Paying 1 is a negative. Receiving 3 is a positive. And paying 2 is a negative. So the answers are negative 5, 4, negative 1, 3, and 2. Question B reads, describe the change to Lisa's amount of money when the spinner lands on red. So go find red. Red says she pays $5. That's all you have to write. If she lands on red, she pays $5. Or, you know what, I wonder if the answer here, I wonder if the book here is looking for you to say that it's probably not that she pays $5, it's probably this. Her amount decreases by $5, or her amount changes by it's probably a negative answer here. Her amount changes by negative 5. That's probably what we're looking for there. If you use the positive answer, then what you're doing is actually finding the absolute value, which is fine as well. They're both okay. Alright, question number 10 says, Sam's credit card balance is less than negative $36. Does Sam owe more or less than negative $36? So the first thing I'm going to do here is make a little picture. To me, when you have a picture, it kind of makes more sense. So if you have a number line here, and Sam's credit card balance is negative, so I'm going to put a 0 right here. Put negative 36 right here. His balance is right here, so put a dot. Does Sam owe more than or less than $36? Well, his credit card balance is less than negative 36, so his credit card balance is over here. And how much he owes is what it would take to get it up to 0. So an example of the amount of money that Sam would owe would be something like negative 40. So if he owed negative 40, he would need to pay 40 to get to 0, which means that it would be more than $36. These are the trickiest ones. Okay, let's move on. Question 11 is financial literacy. Emily spent $55 from her savings on a new dress. Explain how to describe the change in Emily's savings balance in 2 different ways. So one way to do that would be to just say that spending $55 is a negative. So I'm just going to go, she spent $55, that's a negative. So the first way is to write negative 55. Now what we're looking for here is that you can also use the absolute value. The absolute value is, you could say Emily's savings. Now what word are we going to be able to use here to describe that her saving went down? I would just use the word decreased. Emily's savings decreased by $55. So the 2 things I did here was I used a negative integer to describe how she spent money, and the second thing I did was I found its absolute value and I put it as a positive number, but I used a word decreased to describe that it's actually a negative. So that's 2 different ways. Alright, we're going to do 2 more problems. One we are going to skip. We're going to skip number 13. I'll go ahead and display all the hot questions here. I'm going to write the word skip here on number 13. You can do the same thing. It is overly complicated, and what we get out of it is not necessarily as helpful as it needs to be. Number 12 reads, make a conjecture. Can 2 different numbers have the same absolute value? If yes, give an example. If no, explain why not. The answer is yes. And the example needs to look something like mine. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. So what we're trying to do here is ask this. Can I put a number inside this symbol to get a number? And then put a number inside this symbol, and I got to spread that out a little bit because it looks like an 11, inside this symbol and get the same number. And I can, and I'll show you why. Let's say I put a 14 right here. Are there two numbers that have an absolute value of 14? Yes, there are. 14 is 14 spaces away from 0, and negative 14 is 14 spaces away from 0. The two different numbers are 14 and negative 14, but they have the same absolute value of 14. And question number 14. Critique reasoning. Angelique says that finding the absolute value of a number is the same as finding the opposite of a number. For example, negative 5 is equal to 5. Explain her error. Well, she's right sometimes. She's right that negative 5 is in fact equal to 5, and 5 is both the absolute value and opposite of negative 5. But what if we switch the number to positive 5? Well, the absolute value of positive 5 is 5, but it is not the opposite. So she's right sometimes, but she's not right all the time. So what we need to correct her, and we need to say this. The absolute value and opposite of a negative number are equal, but not of a positive number. So she's actually right about half the time. So, and that's what a lot of kids actually struggle with. A lot of kids think that absolute values and opposites are the same thing, and sometimes they are, but not always. If I give you a positive number, the absolute value is that same positive number, and the opposite is a negative. So, okay, we are done with lesson 1.3.